Horror games have never been my thing. Sure, I've dabbled in Fatal Frame and other spooky-ish games, but I've never bothered to play any seriously because I don't like them. Except for one time, with one series. When I was a teenager, it dropped one day, changing the meaning of indie and horror as a whole. I got into it after the second game in the series was released, and have been a fan of how the series handled its gameplay, themes, and story ever since. The series in question was Five Nights at Freddy's. It's a series about watching cameras in a haunted pizzeria trying to stop a bunch of possessed fast food mascots from coming to butcher you. Sounds pretty cute and cuddly, right? In 2014 to 2015, these games were being pumped out like wildfire, and it felt like a new one was being teased every time I took a breath. Hype was through the roof. People were brightening up teasers and wondering what each character's backstory was, and God forbid you said the box wasn't important to the story. You would be devoured. I wasn't one of the rabid fans, but I enjoyed the series and its many different facets during its lifespan. Of course, new games are still being released, but they're different. Instead of being a one-man team, they're pumped out unfinished by a company who I'm sure tried their best, but they just feel empty. Today, I'm going to look back at the classic entries in the series, the ones that came out when the hype was still fresh. Grab your pizza slices and your Fazbear regalia, because we're about to get spooky. Five Nights at Freddy's 1 is the game that started it all, and you can definitely tell. Its systems are very simple. You can light up the hallways, close the doors, and check on cameras, all at the cost of some of your power. If you lose all your power, or an enemy gets to you before 6 AM, it's game over. Live that long, and you move on to the next, harder night. The mechanics in this game are, simply put, just okay. Eventually, they do get extremely repetitive, and the nights in this game are notably longer than others in the series, so it starts to drag fast. Eventually, you won't even need to check the cameras anymore, save for Foxy, who requires you to watch him like an unattended child in front of a gorilla pit at the zoo. Surely nothing like that would ever happen, though, so I'm not sure that's the best analogy. Freddy is another interesting part of the game. He waits until the third night, then goes completely ballistic, running up and down the hallways and trying to break into your office. The game does get fairly difficult around the fourth night or so, but you can beat it with relative ease if you know the enemy's patterns. The ambience in this game is fairly good. The dark and drab cameras, as well as the old crusty animatronic designs, really make me feel uncomfortable in the role I've been given. Still, the feeling of nostalgia kinda mucks that up, so I'll stop playing before I start reciting the Living Tombstone on instinct. I'm gonna give this game a 7 out of 10. It's a classic, and I can't be mad at it for being a foundation to the series. For what you pay for it, you'll get value and probably won't get too bored by the time you beat it. I wish the mechanics were a little more in-depth, but the ambiance is great, and it serves as a great reminder of how to do indie horror. Jumpscares acting as punishment rather than a cheap break from gameplay is a nice touch as well. It's time to move on, but I feel like I'm missing something. Nah, let's just move. Oh my god, I forgot to check Foxy. Damn it. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 dropped only a few months after the original and is regarded as one of the best in the series by many fans, myself included. It drops the whole power to the whole building mechanic in favor of a simple flashlight battery, which you need to again ward off Foxy. Some new animatronics are introduced, mainly the toy animatronics, fresh new versions of our old friends. Well, I guess they're the old friends since this thing is a prequel. Still, it looks like the FNAF 1 crew is in pretty bad shape. They even took Bonnie's face. Can't have anything at Fazbear's. Balloon Boy and the Puppet are the only two completely new animatronics not based on anything, and they're pretty significant. Balloon Boy will just shut your flashlight completely off if he gets into your office, making you easy prey for Foxy, and the Puppet is the reason why you keep checking your camera, as she gets upset if you don't wind her music box for her. Why she likes this trash classical music when Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz's end credits theme is right there is beyond me, but make sure to check up on her. If any of the other animatronics get into your office, you have a mask to defend yourself with. If you don't pop it on in time, you're dead, so you have to be quick. Make it to 6 AM, you win. This game doesn't get hard until about night 4, but at that point you're juggling like 17 different things at once. Also, Toy Bonnie stays in front of your mask for 4 years at a time, so Foxy can just dance down the hallway and stop for a sandwich while he's there. I hate this. This game's ambiance is pretty good. It feels less claustrophobic than the first one, but the sounds and feeling of being watched makes it more uncomfortable. I'm giving the second game in the series a solid 9 out of 10. The gameplay loop is fun and the new mechanics work well for the most part. This game is okay. That's my verdict right off the bat. You're a night guard stationed in some horror attraction, and on the second night they drag in some old animatronic that they somehow don't realize has a rotting corpse inside of it. People can tell when mayo is on their Subway sandwich by accident, but don't realize that this bunny suit has guts in it? Oh, okay, I guess. The guy inside the suit is a serial killer responsible for killing the kids that possess the animatronics in the first place, so our tool to ward him off is an audio MP3 file of a child laughing. Play it in the camera near him, and he'll run over there to find them. He's the only animatronic who can actually kill you, but because you took 34 Flintstones gummies before your shift, there's phantom animatronics who can jump scare you and shut one of your systems down. They'll also randomly fail more and more as the nights go on, so rebooting systems provides a nice break from checking cameras. That's basically all there is to this one. Sometimes he'll go in the vents and you'll have to seal one off, but beating this game is not difficult at all. Just trap him in the corner and make him hear voices with the audio button, and you can beat the nights pretty easily. Every phantom is also easy to counter if you're actually paying attention, so realistically, this is the easiest game in the series so far. I enjoy the color palette and ambiance of this game. It can get quite creepy at times. That's not enough to completely save it from the boring gameplay loop, though. I'm giving this one a 6 out of 10. It gets boring fast, and if you know what you're doing, there's no difficulty and you can breeze through it in a half hour. Fun times. Not going to touch on the secret ending and such, as we'll be here all day, and I'm also not going to talk about FNAF World. That game's a solid time, you should go play it, but since it's such a deviation from the other games in the series, I just can't touch on it here. I'm sorry. Five Nights at Freddy's 4 is commonly listed as people's favorite game in the series, and I can see why. Its atmosphere is fantastic, and it's the first in the series to change things up. No cameras, no office, no night guard. You're a little kid in his bedroom using your flashlight and ears to prevent creepy crawlies from getting in. Somehow, Foxy is still the biggest pain in the ass here, as he'll sneak into your closet and steal all your hoodies like some kind of thrift store goblin. Freddy is also a special case here, as he sends all his little baby Freddles onto your bed, and if you let them get too out of hand, he'll get you. You need to listen carefully when you approach one of the doors. If you hear breathing, you need to shut it quickly. If you don't, you'll blow your eardrums up, which I'm not particularly a fan of since I have sensitive hearing. Oh well. This game also introduces some new animatronics during the final nights, representing the culmination of this kid's fears. What are you supposed to be?
I'm the culmination of all your fears.
Last I checked, this game just made me sad. I'm not afraid of it. There's not much else to say about this one. It's great, and potentially the strongest entry in the series. You get afraid of a loud jump scare, and your fear may make you perform worse in the game. In order to do well, you have to take risks, and that's what really gets the blood flowing here. This one is a 9 out of 10, based on my personal preference of liking my hearing. Sister Location is the game that came after the game labeled the final chapter, but let's ignore that. Another prequel-y game, this one also ditches more of the series' core features, this time the time system. You complete your tasks, you can leave this time. Sounds easy, but it's not. The game's ambiance is pretty solid. It's dark and abandoned, but doesn't take itself too terribly seriously, which I appreciate. I hadn't actually played this entry before writing the script for this one, but I'd basically seen the entire thing through Let's Plays, but that didn't do the difficulty justice. It can get tough, and some annoying segments like the Mini-Rena Springlock suit make me want to just quit playing this series entirely. Still, I pushed forward, and I think this is another 9 out of 10. It's unconventional, but in a good way, ditching tired mechanics for brand spanking new ones. A great time for sure. Well, this is a fun one. Disguised as a simple pizzeria simulator, as the title implies, this is instead a completely free entry in the series, jam-packed with tons of content, humor, and extra endings. The gameplay here is a little confusing, but once you figure it out, I think it's pretty cool. The animatronics just manifesting out of thin air isn't really scary at all, though. Startling at best, but I'm here to fight Springtrap, not David Blaine. Still don't get why he looks like this here. The ambiance and story is cool because the lightheartedness of the simulator yet cramped feeling of the nights contrasts nicely to prevent boredom. Scott Cawthon also dropped the hardest video game ending of all time before the studio he handed the series off to made Springtrap the equivalent of Clippy. Shame.
Do you need help with murder?
What? I don't want to murder anyone.
How about for a chocolate bar?
I'm gonna give this one a 9 out of 10 again. Very good way to wrap up the classic series with fun gameplay and a ton of replayability, especially for a completely free title. We have one more classic entry to talk about, being a giant mashup of literally everything that gives me a headache ever. This game is a souped-up version of the custom night mechanic featured in almost every other entry, with 50 total animatronics, unlockables, and a tiny bit more lore about the serial killer William Afton going to hell and fighting suggestive robots, to say the least. The levels of creativity in this game are staggering, and if you enable everything, it kinda just becomes a mechanical free-for-all of juggling. Still, some people have managed to beat 50-20, the game's hardest difficulty, and I applaud them for it. The most notable things about this game are its humor and animatronics. It goes full parody in this game, and I love it. Toy Freddy and Funtime Foxy are the biggest headaches in any FNAF game in this one, as they require you to monitor them full time. I'm not even getting paid for this, man. This game is a solid 9 out of 10. I wish every series animatronic was playable, but there's some missing ones. That's pretty much my only complaint, though. It's a free farewell game from Scott as a developer, and I appreciate it. A lot. So, what do I think of the classic series? Rose-tinted glasses aside, I think it's great. It's a fun little indie horror series that tells a compelling story, but also incorporates humor, and while it doesn't always nail every mechanic, you can tell there's heart and soul put into it. So, what about the newest entries? I thought Help Wanted was alright, and I had a good time with it. Security Breach, though, well, it was gifted by a friend, but I don't have the stomach to play it yet. From everything I've seen about it, it looks okay, and I want to make crystal clear that I think Steel Wool's staff are talented and truly do care about the series. But risking sounding like an entitled Pokemon Gen 1er, it's just not the same. Sure, maybe it's because the nostalgia's gone, but it's gone from this cool little project that took the world by storm to this commercially friendly AAA franchise that farts out new plushies and such without care for launch quality. The story is dulled down, and I'm not going to speak on the gameplay since I haven't played it, but how much is too much? Should the series have ended with the swan song that was Ultimate Custom Night? Or is there more to tell? This isn't a FNAF exclusive question. A lot of game series just get beaten to death by too many entries. I think it's time for me to move on, and treasure the memories I had with the older games in the series. It's just not for me anymore, and that's alright. I'll forever remember Five Nights at Freddy's as the franchise that defined the genre for me. And I'll always remember Foxy as that little